Boundless Spirit, pushing the limits of talk radio with Charlene Springer.
Welcome to Boundless Spirit Radio with Charlene Springer. And today, exciting day, we've got Susan Gash in the studio, well, not in the studio with us, but on with us today. And she has got a lot to share. That's what it feels like today. Susan is a healer. And of course, this is the time that we need healing so much on our planet. And I see it a lot for the women of our planet. Susan works with or invokes the spirit doctor, which is a combination of different beings, and we'll talk about that throughout the show. Susan's also a dowser and a former dancer. She does something called, she's what you would call a certified movement analyst, which is incredible. And she's also the founder of an all-woman dance theater. So welcome, Susan.
Hi, welcome. Thank you, Charlene. I'm glad to be here.
Great. So great to have you on the show today. Healer, that's a big word. Why do you consider yourself a healer? And what does a healer do in your case?
Yeah, it's primarily in the way that I look at the word healer for myself is that I'm more really a facilitator, because true healing has to happen within each person. So I just facilitate the opportunity for that healing to take place, and I do it in a couple different ways. But that's the gift that I have to offer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And when did you realize that you were a healer?
It was about 10 years ago, and my former life as a dance theater person and having a company. When I really look back now, I can see how the work that we did, it was an all women's, pretty much a feminist dance company, although we really never built it that way. Through the 80s and 90s. That work, we always were giving voice to women's issues in that work in theater. And so there in that was always that, combined aspects of healing, of education, of entertainment, of artistic expression. And it was all sort of collaboratively put together. There wasn't one piece of that pie that really was more artistic expression, really. So it wasn't until I finished that work, and that kind of led me to where I am now. But I had to really step out of one door to come into this new door. And it took me a while. It was a transition period of about 2 years to really step into this. It took me that long to really step into that new place. Yeah.
When did you start dancing?
Not too late. I did some, typical sort of ballet classes when I was like 10, 11. Mm-hmm. Just because my best friend in grade school was a dancer, and I thought she was so cool. Whatever she did, I wanted to do. But I found out, I knew at that early age that this really wasn't for me. I enjoyed it to a certain extent. It was learning a craft or a skill, but it didn't have the kind of freedom that I now, at that time, there really wasn't that much for creative movement for children. And I actually did quite a few of those programs later, developing programs for children in the area that I lived. So it wasn't until I got to college, and then I saw a creative dance class, a modern dance class in this community college. And I thought, I'm going to sign up for that. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to sign up. That was that. And so it just turned out the woman who was the teacher of that course was moonlighting. She was really at the university in the dance, one of the dance faculty. So it's one of those beautiful divine alignments, because at that end of that semester, she said, Susan, if you'd want to come over to the university and start taking classes. And I was like, that is a dream. Yes. And then it took a little while, to get enough scholarship money and to get into the program. And then I graduated with a degree in performing arts and choreography and performance. And And right after, started teaching at the university, which was amazing. And right after that, decided to start a company. And having no experience, just kind of in. It's kind of how I do it, I guess. And
that's what I was just about to ask you. What were you thinking?
I wasn't. It was pure instinct and passion. And I had several people say to me, "What are you doing?" Like the Arts Council, like, "Susan, you really need to. What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I just want to start a company." What's wrong with that? All of 25 at 25, you have that in your 20s. You've got all that amazing drive that can be there.
Huh. Because why is movement so key? Because we see a lot of things going on with people. So why is movement so key?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's key because that ability to move allows us the ability to allow flow in, which is really life, to stream within our body. And that's all healing really is. So whenever there's a cessation or stop of movement, when there's that kind of stasis, is when things get congested and blocked. And we all come to certain times in our life, or we discover that we have obstacles or blocks. So movement is really key. And I'm right now with a friend who has a yoga studio here in the area of the Eastern Shore of Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
I told her last night, we had dinner, and I said, it's so important right now, the studio that you run and the kind of work that you do, because people are really needing this to help process and integrate everything that's going on.
Because we tend to keep those locked in our bodies. It's memory too, no?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And, through the dowsing work that I do, just really discovered how much memory is in there. It's like a chip, right, in our cellular body. Memories of past life traumas, past life woundings, as well as gifts. However, it's really fascinating because with the spirit doctor work, and I know we'll get into that, a lot of times they will bring forward, or the information will come forward through me, through them, that there's a memory there that wants to be reawakened, to remember the gift in this lifetime that's sitting there kind of dormant. Or it's a past life wounding that really needs, it's time for it to come up to really be cleared, because I've never seen so much like, and whether it's an event or a wounding or a past life contract, that is actually a configuration of energy that stays with us through an incarnation to another. And that's till we're ready really to let it come up, surface, and clear it. It's just sitting there.
Huh.
It's amazing. We're like a storehouse battery, really.
That's not such a good thing,
That's why we have to clean house, literally. Clean house, pretty much on a daily basis.
Well, don't they say that these new children are coming in, any child born after 2000, I think it was, or is it 2000 or 2012, that they were coming in without karma, so they didn't have the baggage that we came in with.
It certainly looks like that, because we have several young people in their 20s either coming for private work or coming to our retreats or just coming to do some assisting work with our technical stuff, right? And they're amazing to me. They're so fast at processing. It's like they don't carry that.
Yeah.
At the same time, for us who've been around to initiate a lot what they're walking into, they're walking into a place where there are things that have been prepared or education has taken place. We can choose. We can choose to step out of that karmic cycle. It's just literally making the conscious awareness choice of it. I've seen that too. It's like, just to really clearly say, I'm ready, and I'm stepping off that wheel. Ready to really embrace and embody everything that I am.
Well, we know it's the time, the rise of the feminine. And it's been going on for a little bit. And we what do you see happening with women? Because you see women all over the world. So what do you see happening with women all over the world? What's the trend that you've seen in the last few years?
Yeah. Two things. One is women are really, really standing in their power. However, what I'm seeing recently, and I mean as of like the last couple months, turning into 2017, January 1, is that this deep wounding that's within the feminine, within the women, is really coming up to be cleared. And I mean, like it is ancient. And in so fact, I've had a kind of a slew of Indian women, right? I mean, as of Indian from the country. And they're living in the States. They're amazing women. They've either left their husbands a while ago that were
before it was fashionable.
and businesses, however, very successful, however, in a moment of like pure crisis. And so that's been interesting to look at from a healing perspective, and also from a dowsing perspective, where when we talk about entities, right, off-planet entities or entities here on this planet, and there appears to be one really large non-beneficial entity that's sort of sitting over all those ancient Indian texts, right? Any religion where, you know, women have been oppressed or spoken about in a less than friendly way, sitting there. And, you know, it's just disconnecting from that, clearing that from somebody's energetic field. And as a dowser, we're looking like, well, can we just clear this entity? And actually getting the information, no, because some people are still actively working with that, want to be working with it. And it's going to take a group of dowsers to actually step, you know, and I think that's going to happen in our July retreat that we're doing here in Ecuador. So it's going to be an interesting group project.
When you say entity, what, a group entity or just really one entity?
No, it's one huge entity.
Okay, so we'll save that entity for the woo hour.
Because it was a surprise to us as well. You know, we were dealing mostly with, you know, people who, you know, the entities that are kind of floating around in fourth dimension here that like attached to someone, you know, if their energetic field becomes weakened for various reasons, we get sick, or, you know, we walk into a bar and start drinking too much, you know, everything opens up and all these things can happen.
If people only realized how open they become when they drink a lot of alcohol.
And it just is like the big door gets open, come on in, you know.
So it's good to drink alcohol at home amongst your crystals.
Protected, contained space. Exactly.
Yes. Or not.
Yes. So it's just keeping, you know, it's keeping our vibration high enough. It's keeping energy field strong enough. You know, we're going to vacillate. There's no, you know, there's no stasis balance, but yeah, in general, you know, all those things that we know that keep us healthy.
Yeah. You're also a dowser. What's a dowser?
It's a way, a dowsing is a way of working with energy. And we do what we call energetic dowsing. And so
because, you know, when I think of dowser, I think of you're looking for water.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And that's, maybe we could come up with another term, but because that's the original source. And there are water dowsers. So dowsing has a lot of subsets.
Okay.
So yes, and that's we've done a little bit of that, but we've really found out quickly that's not our expertise, right? That is not. So, and it's you know, there's anyway. So the work that we do is, for instance, we would look at somebody's personal energy, really, and you can measure. We use a pendulum and a chart, and so there's ways to measure things, and intuitively you kind of can get a hit or no. So we can look at that. We can look at all kinds of things, and just because the pendulum is just a tool, you know, and it's learning. In dowsing, it's about learning how to ask the question. the more specific one can be, the better outcomes and results. So if you think of energy, everything is energy, and everything is a configuration of energy. If you want to clear something, be that an entity in your field or a belief system, there's a very, very powerful mantra that was passed down through 4 generations of Native American shamans in North America, and we studied this work. And it basically takes apart that configuration of energy, and that's it. So it's a banish the spirit, deactivate its life force, scramble its frequency, and neutralize its energy. So it takes it apart. Then we ask spirit world simply to take it to the other side, to the light of God or to universal energy, central sun, and transform it. And whatever it needs to do, so it takes our ego out, whatever needs to happen with that energy, as it can kind of recycle, evolve, or whatever it needs to do. And it's amazing. So
should we go around the world and say that mantra over every radio station?
Every radio station, yes. Yeah, it's a powerful one. And the thing is, it's a total collaboration with spirit world, because the thing with dowsing is that we all have our love and light, right? Everyone has that. And what we really liked, and my husband and I do this work together, son, is that dowsing will go to the dark side. And it's looking to look at what is non-beneficial. So we're looking at root causes of things. And again, whether it's this lifetime, another lifetime, but, to get to the root cause and then actually clear it. So it's a powerful method, powerful modality.
And you douse, you also douse places, because I think you had done some work with Lucia Renee, no?
Yeah. In dowsing, you can we've worked with land, clearing curses from a land. We've worked with, Charlene, we did this pretty large project the end of December. We did a soul retrieval for the planet.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's now up on our website if anybody wants to come as a free offering gift to participate in it, because soul retrieval is another dowsing protocol, right? And so when we can check with a person and say, what percentage of soul is active with you current moment, and what percent did you come in with at birth?
Right.
And so pieces, we'll call them lost fragments of our soul, depending on past life traumas or traumas in this lifetime. Just a piece moves over to the side, let's say, and just sits there until it's really called back. So it doesn't experience that trauma. So anyway, looking at land, and we kept getting this invitation when we were clearing somebody's property in New Zealand, and it was an island, and the island said, would you please, we don't really recognize these GPS boundaries. Can you please just clear this whole peninsula of 50 houses?
Wow.
We were like,
okay.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense, right? It started from there because it was something that it worked to us a little bit, because we just didn't say, hey, let's check the soul and see what her planet is. I mean, let's check the planet to see what her
right.
So when we eventually did, and it was at that point, say a year ago, it was right around 67%. So where was the other 33? When we did the protocol and we had a group of 20 dowsers on that call, it rose to, I believe it was 86 or 87. So it's in process, right? And that's what we do. Sometimes this will happen for a person. We go through the protocol and it won't go. Sometimes it will go to 100%, depending on the person's willingness, the involvement. But often they'll reserve some time there, literal time, for integration, or it's just too much all at once. So anyway, that's what occurred. And so anyone who wants to come on to that link and call and put their energy into it, because I think it's in process, and it's going to it's a collaboration, it's just going to take more than one person. So.
That is beautiful. I think that's beautiful, because I know just reconnecting with the pieces of your soul, that's so key. And more I actually see women that have jumped their bodies because of some trauma. And the thing is, they're walking around thinking they're okay.
Yeah. That disassociation. I'm seeing that now too. It's interesting, this whole issue on, and again, my background in movement, but embodying, so when we sit and do meditation, it's not so much, this is my feeling about the new way, right? The new paradigm is that we're not really disassociating and going to this mental state or just pure consciousness. We're actually integrating our physical body in that process. However, we're needing a little bit to upgrade the system. Sometimes there's just some density there. But as we're moving towards what I see as the light body, and I know people are talking about that, we looked at the carbon silicon base to the crystalline energy coming online with our physical bodies to now this light body. It's happening. It's in process. And
do you think that you saw the entity with the Indian women? Do you think each nation has an entity that kind of holds the chains on them? Each type of people?
I'm thinking so, Charlene. And actually, we discovered working with a woman in, I think, Cape Town, South Africa. She had been very involved in her probably at least my age, in her early 60s, but she had been very engaged with the Catholic Church earlier in her life. And her 3-year-old daughter was the one that really pulled her out. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go there.
Smart girl.
We're talking about those new ones coming in. And so she's saying, can we just look at that? It would come up in the conversation during her session. And when we looked at it, there's where we saw another huge entity. And I just named it the Roman Catholic Church entity. And it's the whole darn thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. Wow.
Well, we see that people don't understand that when you are in the church that you're actually repeating the mantras of kind of slavery, basically.
Yeah. I mean, we really need to look at the language closely because
if they were to really listen to what they say and repeat every Sunday, they wouldn't say it again. That's what stopped me. I started listening. I'm like, I'm just going to go listen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, now I know this was confirmation that this is definitely not for me. And, it's just, as I call myself a recovering Catholic.
Me too. Yeah, but that just goes to what you're saying. It's so true. It's a testimony of the power of the vibration of a sound, which is a word, right?
Yeah, it's a mantra.
It's a mantra.
It's a mantra.
It's like repeating an agreement. Oh,
yes. That you are no good, that you are horrible, that you're this sinful being.
Less than, right?
Yeah.
And here's the other issue, as for women, is that we were just having this big talk last night at dinner with my 2 girlfriends here. How we've placed ourselves, in the last to receive. Let me just say that.
Oh, yeah.
And the physical discomfort that's actually showing up in our bodies until we really sit with that and say, what is really going on here with why am I in so much pain in my hip or my lower back? Yeah.
Yeah, we see it. I see, the cases that I've seen. Yeah. It's a lot going on. So now, what do you do as far as like workshops that can help women with some of these processes?
Well, I'm not doing anything specific. Right now we're doing workshops and retreats. I mean, they're mixed for men and women, but however, coming as a woman, it's really about clearing out these imprinted, let's just say imprinted belief systems. They're really not ours. And whether they come through a religious text or, our upbringing or in all, it's really all. This is the clearing piece that we're looking for, because until we do the clearing, we're not, and really establish ourself, let's say our baseline, to really feel our worth. The whole issue around worthlessness. Oh my God, that's so old. 5,000 years.
Or more.
Actually, right. It's probably beginning of time. But, as my good friend Lucia Renee, we live in the same cute little town of Ecuador. She always reminds me, Susan, we all agreed to this. This what does she call it? Exploration and consciousness. We've all agreed to this, to play all these different roles, and we've all played on different sides. And it's true, once we start exploring that, we've been the tyrant, we've been the victim, we've been this, we've been that. To really allow all those dual roles to evolve us to where we are now. Mm-hmm. However, it does feel right, and it does seem to be the time where we can really now step in after all that experience, right?
It's funny that you talk about an entity, a big entity, because I actually felt that the other day. I felt, do you know like how you feel like a puppet on a string?
Yeah.
That's what I saw. I don't know what that was. That's what I saw. And I was like, is that possible? That's what I wondered. And now that you're saying all this, I'm like, oh, okay, so maybe it is. Are we having what you would call, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Jupiter Rising moments here?
Oh, I haven't seen it. I'm going to write that down.
It's a movie where it has like entities, different entities. One all about looks, or I forgot, like an Adonis type thing, and that's what it would harvest, because people talk about harvesting us here on this planet. Jupiter Ascending, that's the name of it. They talk about the other one. It's about being in the bowels of the earth. So it's about fire, about war, and they harvest that. So I don't know if you ever saw the other movie. I always talk about this movie, Monsters, Inc., which is a kid's movie. I don't know if it's Pixar or Disney, but it shows that the monsters, the furry monsters that come and scare you at night, they do it because your fear creates electricity for them. And then one day a baby gets in, and they realize that finally that the joy creates even more electricity than fear.
We always say, if it's in the films, it's it's there. Right? It's
especially kids' movies.
I want to put this little precaution out there with kids' movies, especially the Disney stuff, because it's very there's so much programming there, of a dark nature. So it's difficult. I've never watched that. I love the music from The Lion King. I've never watched that film. I've never watched any Disney films after I discovered that. So
how much programming goes in?
And the big one, the really big one that we've all seen, right? Wizard of Oz. So many trigger words in there,
Wow.
Yeah. And so it goes back to kind of that darker nature programming, enslavement. There's so much out there now that's coming out, thankfully, And we can go down. It's difficult in the beginning, I think, of this waking up period, because it can create fear to start to look at this, and instability, like everything that you thought was this way. So for people to down the rabbit hole,
we actually call it rock in the corner moment.
Yeah, rock.
You sit in the corner and you just rock.
Self-soothing is really important these days. About that TLC.
Because there's nothing you could do, so you stick your finger in your mouth and you rock.
Yeah, exactly. And then you find some like-minded friends that you can hang out with.
Yes. Because sometimes the information, I have told friends who were giving me more information. I said, okay, you need to stop now. I'm very full. I can't do any more right now. I'm good.
point. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's good to know. That's good to know. And that's when it's good to, take a walk or go do some dishes.
Yep. Go to the beach. Yeah.
Yeah.
we do that. So now in the grand scheme of things, where do you think this is going to go? I mean, we see there's a big wake up. We know there's a big wake up. We know that a lot of the what you call the dregs of what's sitting in our ancient wounding is coming to the surface. So where do you see us going from here? Because nothing comes to the surface unless it's ready to heal. That's my logic. So where is it going from here?
Charlene, I wish I had the answer to that. The work that we're doing with the Crystal Mountain Healing, where we are when we're in Ecuador, is that we're in it. We're not in the trench, but however, we're handing our hand down there, like, come on out. When I turn and look, what's the potential here? And at times, what I really feel and is that, I don't know, is it that we're going to pure, we're going to walk on this land with pure, bliss, or in really getting what it means to be in sustainability, in balance, right, in the ecosystem that we're part of, and that we also come back to all of our talents and gifts, which are that we can, be in be in many places at one time. We can have telepathy turned on, switched on. We can communicate with our flowers. We can communicate with our crystals and with one another. I mean, I think this is all the potential. This is the potential. Some of it I've experienced. Is that where we're going? I think it's a possibility. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think?
Well, you see where kids come in and they do stuff and they don't know that nobody else can do it. So I have seen that where kids go, well, yeah, I did this. And you look at them and you're like, oh, really? And they're like, yeah. So you have to kind of explain to them, well, other people aren't aware of this. So that's why they're not reacting the same way you are. Like I had a nephew, and one of my nephews, he was always the special one. He knew, and he would get into fights. And I'm like, why are you getting into fights? He says, because I know they're coming to hurt me. And I'm like, oh, I said, so you're actually seeing their energy before they come to you. I said, so in this world, you can't do that because then you're initiating the fight, even though they're coming with the intention. So I said, so next time you see them coming, you just make your energy bigger with good light, and then it'll change their energy. He never got into another fight.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Right.
So they are coming in differently. They're coming in more aware.
Yeah. Yeah, thankfully.
Yeah. So there's something happening. There's something going on. There's something, and somehow being around children, if you are willing to look, I know from, I have nieces and nephews, and they all teach me something about myself. They remind me of who I am, of who I used to be.
Wow, that's beautiful. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember that freeness, that wildness, that not daredevil, but that will do what feels good always. That took precedence. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And no fear, with no fear, really, because it's not a thing. You just do. Yeah.
Block, right? I mean, it is probably the block.
Yeah, the biggest. What we're seeing is more, I think, people not even recognizing that that's what it is. That it is a fear block.
Yeah, I mean, that's, there's so much going on, energetically, largely in countries, the whole election piece and everything. It's just, the wake-up call and the change, the energetic change that's going to precede the actual physical pieces of it, right? Manifestation of it are all there. They're all in place.
Mhm.
But you're right. These young people, that's a beautiful to hear that.
Now, when you look at America, especially after what happened, and I don't know, I just always still have the feeling that something happened in the months leading up to elections, something different. It's almost like I remember waking up and going, am I in a different room? Or you just feel like something changed? And then, of course, the election happened. Did you have any feelings like that? And then when you look at America and you're looking at it from an energetic dowsing point of view, what changes have you seen?
Mm-hmm. Well, the day of the election, we live in Ecuador now 7 years, so it's been a really interesting process to go through. I always say moving to Ecuador was the dowsing that was done on us, right? Because yeah, forced change, right? That we said yes to. So something like that. But the day of the election, I was laying in bed and his friend said, hey, you want to know who's the new president of the United States? And I said, well, I already know. And I had this like feeling. It was just heaviness. I was like, yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, I don't think you do. And I said, what? When he told me, I felt, I almost went into some feeling of like such ecstasy, like, oh my God, like excited. And I don't know anything about this man. I don't know what the platforms were. I didn't participate, right? I just didn't participate. So, but it was the energy of it, because literally later I'm talking to a lot of friends and they're saying, Susan, have you lost your mind? I'm like, not really. No, I actually am gaining my mind, because it's really not about the platforms. It's about the shift that happened, the energetic shift that happened. That's opening a doorway. And yes, it's a shake-up doorway. Huge. People are really upset, but the feeling I have about North America and coming here and actually literally flying at night and the moment I saw the plane entering into the landmass, because I could see the lights down below. Mm-hmm. It was like this feel of coming into a field of a little bit of pressurized density is what I call it. And then I just started watching like all the lights of different towns and just feeling the congestion. There's just congestion. And so that all has to be worked out. I mean, because we're in this kind of rare opportunity, living in the Andes up on a mountain, a rarefied space, it's not that we're exempt from our personal need to clean house, but it is definitely given us a perspective and a feel, because we're surrounded by nature. It's a place where nature is dominant. And that was a huge lesson. So it's kind of fascinating. And I think truly when the shamans talk about the condor and the eagle meeting, right, the North American, if we put, oh gosh, I got chills, put these two strengths together, we'll be more in balance, really, because there's so much we can learn from one another. These two, yeah.
Yeah, they've talked about that for a while.
Yeah.
Huh. So now, what do you do with that while you're there? Are you going to play with any dowsing, just to kind of, because you're close enough to the capital?
I know. I'm flying to BWI and looking at all the chemtrails and going, wow, yeah, it's funny that I've placed myself. But I've placed myself here for a month. So, and it's really nice. I don't know. Right now, I'm in a little bit of a need for R&R recuperation time. Mm-hmm. So we've put a little block on doing, not a block, but we're not doing any private session work at the moment. Mm-hmm. In place of letting things kind of develop and build for the summer programs that we're doing. But
so like a hibernation moment.
Yeah, funny. I'm hibernating here, right?
I know.
So we'll see as time goes on. I might get the nudge to look at something or do something. But for the moment, I'm just really enjoying being close to the water, because in the mountains, it's a very powerful, the Andes Mountains, they're very powerful. And strong, and I really realized, wow, I need a little break. I need
softer.
Yeah, I need something softer. I need something more nurturing at the moment for myself. Really, that time, and I haven't done this for 7 years.
Wow.
So hello, my other friend said to me, Susan, you it's kind of what you teach, so you kind of maybe need to do it for our friends. Like, oh yeah, good idea.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what comes up for you after, let's say after the first 2 weeks, and you start playing with things. Things will come up, and you'll play with them. It'll be interesting to see what you make of it.
Yeah.
And I think, were you in Germany with Lucia?
Yeah, with Lucia and also David Manning. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. And what was that like for you? Because you guys went on a mission.
We've been on a huge mission, Charlene. It was, Trinity, that we created this triangular configuration of energy, the three of us, and all so different, right? All of our skills and talents, but it was an amazing, I always said it was a little bit like a power pact we put together. And so we did that intensive, it was called Treasure Trove of Transformation in April, and a lot got initiated there in Berlin. It was in Berlin. Wow, I'd have to really go back and look at my notes. It was a really big transformational weekend for us, all the 30-something people that were there, including David and I, and some things that really got worked through planetarily, because Lucia and I did a bunch of dowsing for Berlin and for Germany prior to going. And Lucia always sees that Berlin in particular, but Germany is a place where consciousness is really... how does she say it? That anything that you want to birth new, the consciousness is high there, and it can easily come into place. And then we look at how things get manufactured there so beautifully, quality, right? But then we also look at the history there, which is why actually the history did occur there, because it's an incredible kind of PowerPoint on this planet. And if we look back, even way before World War II, right, we see. Where did the Inquisition happen? Where did the whole Holocaust for women happen? That same area, right? So it's a huge PowerPoint where it doesn't matter, dark or light's going to come through there. I mean, it does matter, but it's just interesting to see that, like what has taken place there historically. So we did a lot of dowsing prior to going. And this was also part of the lead up to the soul planetary piece, because, Lucia's such a warrior. Just let's just do this for the whole planet right now. Why are we just focusing on Berlin and Germany? And we're like, let's just handle that first, and let's see how this. So we've been kind of stepping it, but that was a kind of a real launch point for transformation. I mean, it was an interesting thing that happened on the last day when we did this full day of healing spirit doctor work. That group of people, and it was a very international group, came together. It was like a key card. That's the only, a key card that got turned and dropped down into the core of the earth, and each person held a place on that key card. And it was a little scene like wherever you come from, when you go back to that place, you're kind of this sort of lit up point of reference. So I don't know. It seems like a lot happened, and it was hard to explain.
Well, and Germany is an interesting place. I was actually there again 2 years ago. I used to go a lot. My husband was German. So it was very interesting place. Yeah, because you feel things. You feel, and each area is different. The energy is different. Berlin, I was the first time in Berlin a couple of years ago, and that had an energy. And you go to Dresden, that had a whole other energy. And then you're in Munich, and my favorite is just being in Bavaria, and they all hold different energies. With the people, like I noticed a lot of bitterness in Dresden. it felt very bitter. And I'm like, is it me, or is it that these people are very bitter here? And just bitter about, because there are so many foreigners again. And, you see this thing coming up that I've seen that, and then they had the issues with the Syrians that were coming in through Munich.
Yeah, no, it's correct. There's a lot going on there. And I hadn't been in Berlin for like 25 years. I had a little bit of trepidation because I remember it, of course, 20, or maybe it was longer actually, but so we did a lot of collaboration with some German artists when I had the dance company, and it was awesome. But I remember feeling, and in Berlin, this kind of hard edge, right? This hard edge. I was anticipating that, and landing in Berlin, it was this completely different feel. Very, it's still that creativity, but not with that edge from before.
Right.
Possibly it was me too, but what you're picking up on this energy. One of the things when we did the dowsing for Germany in Berlin, well, like a year ago exactly, was also saw what the rest of the world was projecting onto that country. Right? Holy, this is the history.
Wow, I never thought about that.
Yeah, that was really wild. It was like, okay, let's us to clear that, and also clearing all the waterways, especially there's a lot of waterways through Germany, right? There's a lot of water there.
Yeah.
And the way that water holds memory.
Right.
So it was an interesting, about a 2-hour douse. There were about 5 of us, David, Lucia, myself, Sven, and Alejandra, Lucia's assistant at the time, that we all got on it. It was just a collaboration of looking at things. But that piece about what the rest of the world was projecting there was big. And, wasn't something you could anticipate, until you kind of come across it.
Yeah, because Berlin didn't have the energy that like Dresden had. Dresden was just a whole other animal.
Yeah. Oh, and the difference of the former East and West. There was.
Yeah.
We looked at soul percentage. Very different. Gosh, I can't remember. I don't have those notes in front of me, but it was fast. It was a fascinating douse.
I remember Dresden still had a lot of people who. I know Ernst's cousin. She was like a physicist, huh? And I remember they let people have their records, so she got all the information that all her neighbors were spying on her.
Oh, yeah.
And her dad was a judge, and he was killed because he was too liberal. He was put in jail, and when he finally got out of jail, then they killed him.
We're still in that time period, until another 20 or 30 years go by, where these experiences can be talked about as real, not a story, but like somebody having that real experience. And these are the kind of really big things, like how do we move past something like that?
Yeah, that's the bitterness that I felt there. And you looked at people's faces, and you saw it with the people that were German, originally from there, whereas, you had people that came in as immigrants, and you could see they didn't have that same bitterness in their field like the older German. The young people know because they don't care, but the older generation, you really saw it. You felt it first, and then you saw it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I guess when you look at, their willingness to carry that, all of our carnations as our choices, that's a pretty big one. It's a big one.
Wow. So this is what you do. So when someone comes to you and they're coming with their, first of all, their ethnic wounds, because we start there. So stuff in their DNA, in that line, as you would call it, and they come to you with their then the stuff that they've picked up over the time, whether in some cases you have rape, molestation, that's one set. You've got to be the good girl person, because you get those where you're not worth anything, you get those. What do you do when someone comes to you now?
we begin to look at, so you mentioned some really good points there, Charlene, because we begin to look at the biological lineage, right? What's actually down the pipeline. I always sort of visualize that as a pipeline from the mother line, the father line, and looking at people's spiritual lineage as well, right? So those three lines coming in. So we basically ask to clear that. And what we do with the dowsing is we ask to place a filter in those lines. And the filter basically has a task to allow all beneficial aspects to continue to flow through. For instance, my mother was Italian, my grandparents were from Italy. So there are beautiful things coming through that line. But on the other hand, there were all these things around lack, being an immigrant, being a martyr, which came through the mother line. So it's like, okay, let's stop that flow. So just asking to deflect that back to source energy, which actually affects the whole family, right? It goes back through time, clear that, allowing all beneficial things to flow through. So that's one thing. The other piece is just looking at percentage of impact of like the lower emotions of shame, doubt, guilt, fear, worthlessness. Sometimes we just bunch all those things together to make it quick. And like, what's the impact here? And where does it come from? And then begin to clear it from a cellular point of view, from a past life point of view. And there's always layers. So it's amazing that we've discovered that over and over. There's layers of this. And as you said earlier, when things are ready to clear, they will come up. And sometimes there's just a sediment layer there that's just going to sit there a little bit longer at the right time. And we never really know when that is. But so those kinds of things.
And so you do work with the spirit doctors.
Yeah. I always say, because this is where all this work overlaps, there's an overlap, is that the spirit doctor team are master dowsers. They completely work with energy, right? So they're master dowsers. So when we have a spirit doctor session, we really basically call them in. A lot of times there's just time spent on clearing the energy body. It's like we just call debris. There's just debris there, accumulated, this from our early childhood or past life or whatever, or other dimension. Just sort of cleaning that up, and then literally going in to the physical body and beginning to reformat some things, whether that's our nervous system, upgrading, clearing things from a particular organ. There's been all kinds of amazing, beautiful results with that. Yeah. So,
a quick question on this. Does this affect, the native people always talk about when you heal one generation, you actually heal seven generations forward and 7 generations back. So the type of healing that you're doing and healing it at such a spiritual, physical, just deeper emotional level, do you think that this affects the generations?
Well, I hadn't thought about the future generations because I think we're so much looking at the current moment and past. What we're all. I mean, I know at some point maybe this is all simultaneously. So you're right. I haven't looked at the impact in the future. Although, now that I say that, I have to tell you this quick story about going into the future, because there was a little girl. Her mother called me and said, I thought the session was actually for her. When it finally came around, she said, no, it's for my 11-year-old daughter. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. Well, she said, well, she's not going to really be on the call with you, because you do kind of Skype to Skype without necessarily, don't need the visual, but just hearing a voice. So she said, can you do this remotely? I said, yeah, I can do that. And I said, for some reason, I said, would you just send me her picture? So she sends this picture of this just gorgeous little 11-year-old girl with 2 little braids, and I looked at her face and her eyes, and I said, wow, such depth there, right? Old soul, however we want to. And so I went into the session, and the problem she was having was this, she had some kind of virus 3 years ago, and it was creating all these twitches in her face, spasms. And of course, the mom had taken her everywhere, right? Nobody knows what this is. And of course, when there's stress, it becomes more. and like school test or whatever. And so as she's getting to be 11 now, going to 12, very conscious of this, whereas when she was younger, it wasn't that big of a deal. So here we are in session, and I'm working with her, working with the team, and this huge past life thing comes up about her witnessing something of a really dramatic nature, where it was a sense of like, wow, here was the question: can I ever trust humanity again? And that was her question. That was underlying all this. The virus came in as a way to awaken this attention, sort of to speak, awareness, so that she could heal this. She herself, as a young girl, is an amazing healer. If she wasn't able to, let's say, repair this fissure or this crack or answer this question, none of her gifts were really going to come online. So what happened in the session was that kind of took her by the hand, went forward into time, and I want to say it was something like 2043. I don't know. I wish it was a closer timeline, 2043. And she said, look, we want you to see where humanity has evolved to. And we want to repair your trust that this is going to work out. And it was phenomenal. And so, so the proof's in the pudding. Session closed. So I wrote to her mother like a couple weeks later, because I said, you don't really know me. And I just wondered how all this set with you, because I typed up the session notes, sent them to the mother. I said, I don't know how all this set with you, and she said, I'm willing to do anything for my daughter at this point. So it was like, yeah, this was a little bit far out. Okay. So, but I said, please just let me know if anything changes. So, the good report was 3.5, 4 weeks later, the twitching has completely almost stopped. Only when she's a little bit stressed, it comes back. And so we'll see, we'll see. But how interesting that setup, right? The virus, the past witness.
Past life,
Because that was the first question that came in the session. What have you witnessed?
Wow.
What have you witnessed that has got you in this kind of frozen spot? Yeah.
Huh. So we all have this, something to that effect.
Suspecting that. So when, just to get back to your original question, yeah, so much time we're going back in time, other dimensions, but this was the first time I was really actively aware of like going forward, let's say future time. So, yeah, we'll see. Maybe more of that's coming, Charlene. I don't know.
Yay. So then the kids don't have to go through this. Because man, we did a lot of work.
Yeah, I think so.
Great. So now how can people get in touch with you and to set up a session or to attend one of your workshops or retreats? How can they find you?
Yeah. You can come right to our site. It's crystalmountainhealing.com. Crystal Mountain Healing. And there, you'll see information on private sessions, as well as some of the in-person workshops and retreats that are coming up this June.
Okay, we had a little noise that came in then. So it's Crystal Mountain Healing.
Healing, 3 words. Yeah, Crystal Mountain Healing.
Okay, .com. Okay, and we can get all the information there. And do you have a blog there too?
Yeah, I've got a blog. Yes.
Yay. Awesome. So what's you said you have something coming up next next month?
Actually in June.
In June, right. Okay.
I have 2 events in London. One in London at the College of Psychic Studies, which is a really cool place. There we're going to do a full day healing workshop with the Spirit Doctor team. So yeah, it's going to be fun. And we were there last fall and had a really great time. And we've expanded to a different space to be able to hold more people. So that's
nice.
And then the second weekend, we're doing a weekend workshop on June 10, 11, just outside of London, in the area called the Chilterns. It's about, I think, a 45-minute train ride. And it's a beautiful area, very pretty landscape outside of London that A friend of mine has a gorgeous house with a really big meeting room, lots of light, and we're going to have a 2-day workshop there that's going to incorporate not only healing with the spirit doctor team, but also intuitive dowsing. So we're going to combine these two modalities. And there we're going to, what's been happening is we're sort of leading up to what's leading to this place where we're looking at adjusting our physical bodies, right? Not just to come into balance, so to speak. Yes, come into balance. However, adjusting them to align up with our soul's purpose, because that's what's been happening in the private work. And that's kind of what informs us. So we're going to take that to this level of a workshop and be working it there.
Beautiful. So again, you can get more information on Susan and the workshops that she's been doing and retreats. And if you'd like to set up a session with the spirit doctors at crystalmountainhealing.com. And wow, that's cool. Thank you for doing the beautiful work that you do, Susan.
Oh, thank you, Charlene.
Yeah.
And if anyone's interested in coming to Ecuador, we also
Yay!
opportunities. And in fact, in July, we're doing our first retreat here in Ecuador, in Cuenca, at a location that has thermal waters. It's really beautiful. So thermal spring water. So we're going to be doing a week-long retreat, healing and energetic dowsing work. That's where we're hoping to clear this big church entity, right? I want to participate.
Do you know, we actually thought about moving to Cuenca a few years ago.
Really?
Yeah. Had the research, everything. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, maybe you could come on down.
Yeah, that would be great. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Susan, for being our guest on the first hour. And I can't wait to talk to you in the woo hour, our second hour. And, thank you guys for listening to Boundless Spirit Radio. And we'll see you next time. Take care.
Boundless Spirit goes off the rails. Next up in our members-only segment, the Woo Woo Hour. Whether it's happening on the planet, off the planet, or inside the planet, host Charlene Springer, expert guests, and you dare to go there in the Woo Woo Hour.